Welcome to the Stellar Woman Show, the podcast, magazine, and video hosted by Stella Olivia Kikoyo. Each week, Stella will be bringing you a guest or a segment from the Stellar Woman magazine, whose mission is to spread thriving global women's stories, expert knowledge, and experiences covering mind, body, and spirit, fashion and beauty, money, business, and leadership, so that you too can be inspired, learn, be empowered, and thrive. Since knowledge is potential power, our aim is to spread it like light from one woman to another, which we believe will help to bring about change in perspectives and create new possibilities for all women to learn, be empowered, and thrive. We know if one woman thrives, her family and community thrive too, and the world becomes a better and brighter world. With over 100 interviews and stories, articles, videos, surveys, real life and business lessons and trainings, we believe that there's no better women's classroom as the Stellar Woman Show and magazine. Stella and her guests will be exploring how they started, the dreams realized and unrealized, aspirations, the steps taken, the challenges, failures, lessons learned, decision-making process, and what made them successful, and the stellar woman that they are. For more information, check out the website, www.stellarwomanmag.com. Now, here's your host, Stella Olivia Kikoyo.
Welcome to the show, the Stellar Woman magazine, the magazine that brings you thriving women's stories, knowledge, and experiences so that you too can learn one or two things, be inspired, make a change, and thrive in your life. We're here to move light using knowledge so that you can tap into one woman's light, light up your life, and become the person that you are called to be. So we believe that knowledge is power, of course, if acted upon. And today we are thrilled. I am thrilled to be hosting here an amazing stellar woman. And this is Beth Lapides. Is it Lapides? Am I pronouncing it right?
It sounds perfect the way you say it. I love it. It sounds very magical. I say
Lapides.
I say Lapides. My family says Lapides.
Welcome, Beth. My name is Stella Kikoyo, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Stellar Woman magazine. So welcome, Beth.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Beth is many things. I don't even know how she does what she does, but we are all going to learn and find out. She's an author, a TV host and producer. She is a comedian. She's actually also a creativity coach. And we're going to find out all those things, how she does them and how she manages to be the woman that she is today. And you look so amazing. You look beautiful. We need to know how you're able to look the way you look and do all these things that you do. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Stella. Thanks for having me. And what a beautiful platform and mission you have.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So let's start off with first telling us more, because even if we know that you are the author of So You Need to Decide, you are a host and a producer of an cabaret, we need to know more about those things, but also all the other things that make Beth Beth. Okay. So tell us, who is Beth Lapides?
Well, I think we're going to have a little bit of time to get into all of it. But, essentially, when you ask that big question, besides my job, I do identify with my name. So when you say, who is Beth Lapides, I thought a lot about my name. I'm a writer. So, of course, words. And, when you look at the phrase, be the change, the first word in Be the Change, you can see Beth right there at the beginning of it. And I really identify with that changeability as a being who changes. And so I'm a Be the Change thing. And my name, Beth Lapides, Beth in Hebrew means house, and Lapides is stone. So I have this feeling of being very much a home and a solid home that things sort of come through and like that. I'm an artist at heart.
Everything and everything. An artist, definitely. An artist we want to learn from. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for telling us more of what you feel you are coming from the names, just even bring it out from the names, that your names themselves. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you very much. And I want you to tell us about your backstory.
Well, my backstory, it's very interesting because backstory is so huge, and how much, I have probably 20 million hours of backstory. I'm a writer. But to just in a nutshell, I would say I grew up feeling different and not fitting in and sensitive. I'm also a high achiever, so I sort of think of myself as a type A free spirit, working hard to let the wind blow me where it will. I those two things are always in balance. I was a sick kid, which really shaped me. I think children who are in the hospitals, there's a transformation that happens there, a kind of way of looking at life that has definitely served me well through my life. A survivor, an understanding about the fragility of life from very early on. And but I was definitely muscling through at the same time, super high achiever. I went to Brown and then majored in modes of expression, art, dance, and writing. So I think that's a very encapsulated version of like my backstory, that the part of my backstory that is relevant to this.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. I think when you talk about just being a sickly child and merging it and relating it to how we relate with life, and the fact that you take life maybe more seriously, more precious, and you didn't take it for granted. Like,
You sort of start to understand the mystery of life from the beginning. In 2022 language, it's definitely traumatizing and definitely gives you an awareness, highly sensitizing. Or, I've always had the question because I've talked to so many creative people who were sick kids in hospital and stuff. And I've always wondered, is it the sensitivity that makes you sick, or once you get sick, do you become sensitive? I don't know which, it's a chicken and egg thing. But I definitely, I had an autoimmune disease when I was 5, and I always made the joke, it was so claustrophobic in my house. I had to get sick to get out. And then I was once reading the Louise Hay book, which, has this emotional background to all illnesses. And I looked up my disease and it said like claustrophobia. So I was like, oh my God. So in some ways, I feel like I had a sense of adventure, and I really was like, even at 5, I gotta get out of here. Like, what's out there? And what was that way? And it was also really a huge lesson in not being a victim in a certain way, because it was what I had is a thing that is, they can take out your spleen to fix it. And my doctor didn't. And my body did heal itself. And this sense of waiting and then healing and then being able to really, they tested me all the time. It was just constant blood tests. And they would always say it's not going to hurt. I was constantly being told things that did hurt weren't going to hurt. And they did hurt. And I had already been taught, very moralistic, Jewish upbringing, truth was so important, tell the truth. But then I really did get the idea, like, tell the truth unless it's about pain. Pain is the one thing that it's okay to lie about. And because they kept saying it's not going to hurt. And they were authorities and doctors, and it did hurt. So I was like, oh, okay, well, if it's going to hurt, that's the thing you can lie about is. So it took me a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it was a few decades of being a grown up that until I got like, oh, this is what has happened to me. And especially because I'm a writer and a creative person, I had put up this block around certain painful truths that I had to have then the courage to look at, that it wasn't okay to lie. So, you know, it's a constant state of evolving and growing, but I'm very grateful for that time. I mean, I wasn't socialized at school, which I think also can be super detrimental. School can be so fishy. You know, there's a lot that's wrong with our educational system. And I was socialized in a place that was about healing. And so that was very, in a way, life affirming to have met people in and around the healing journey. You know, there's a big picture of me in the Providence paper surrounded by student nurses, and I'm looking at my Etch-a-Sketch, and it was like, coy patient, you know, all the girl. Anyway, but in some ways, I think that Etch-a-Sketch also imprinted on me, because on Cabaret, the show I do, so much of it is about being in the now and doing new stuff all the time, which is very antithetical to the way comedy is mostly done. And I feel like maybe I've recreated the Etch-a-Sketch experience. The thing of doing it and being in the now and erasing it immediately. Anyway, so much happened to me in the hospital, and even more that we'll get into maybe. But I think it's so important to not frame as a victim. I mean, to be a sick kid is sort of a victim-y story. And to me, it was like the most, I'm so grateful for that experience. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think I had that part in the audiobook of the sketch of your image, and then the nurses surrounding you. So it's amazing that you brought it out. And I think so when you look at yourself as a sick child, because I think I also had a period in my life when I was a bit sickly, and then you sort of idolize being the victim, like then people paying attention to you, then sometimes you start to build onto that to create
Yeah,
your
I
own
didn't have that. I really like avoid doctors. I'm the opposite. I don't want to go to I don't like it. I mean,
that's
I think I had the thing of being an artist and wanting to, you know, the little monkey thing that we have as performers, like dancing, you know, I have this definitely. And I definitely want attention, but I'm not somebody who's like making appointments at doctors to get that attention for sure. I will avoid a doctor's appointment, you know, I don't want to go there. I really, you know, I'll like, yeah, stay healthy.
yeah. You want to stay healthy. It's important to stay healthy, yeah. But a lot of children are known to actually play on that bit of psychology, and yeah, just continue to be victim. Thank you for that. And I think it will tell us more about everything about your creative endeavor. So, what was your dream career as a child? Did you always want to be what you are, what
You
you
know,
do
in a way,
today?
yes. I mean, didn't really even know what it meant, but I just was like, I'm going to grow up and be an artist. I mean, I didn't know what that career meant, but I did sort of understand the life path from the beginning. You know, I think I thought it meant more being a painter, but certainly I think of myself maybe more now as a creator than an artist. That might be just 2022 language, uh, but for sure, that's what I wanted to be. And it's taken a lot of different you know, it's manifested in a lot of ways, and my career has been very organic in the way it's evolved from being a visual artist to being a storyteller to being a performance artist and a comedian. And, you know, it's grown organically from that. But, you know, in my heart, I do identify with that word. And poet. I mean, I identify with the word poet really strongly.
Okay, so you are everything. You've also been a
I'm not
visual.
everything.
Wow,
I'm not everything.
wow, wow, wow.
I'm
That's
not a
so good
sculptor.
because
There are definitely things I'm not. I
no,
am
no,
a
no. I
lot.
mean, as a visual, and then you are also a creator in other ways. So you've been a creator in all these different
Yes.
dimensions.
Yes.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
very good. That's very good. And amazing, amazing. So allowing yourself to actually explore all those avenues of life.
It's more just, okay, I'll say it. Sure, I'll go with that. Allowing myself to explore. I think it's more being maybe stubborn. I don't really think of it as allow. I don't really, there's not like a permission.
very.
I do definitely have a burning desire that I honor, I would say, more than something that I allow. I have definitely listened to that part of me that is, I don't want to say desperate, but yearning to be heard and yearning to create and yearning to connect.
And bring out to whatever is inside you. Yeah. Oh wow. That's very good. So thank you for that. And now we know that this is a platform for women's empowerment. And we know that as you are already a creativity coach, so we know that you're aspiring to be more. What are your attributes of your ideal stellar woman?
Well, I would have to say courage. I'm glad you're doing courage. I think courage is one of the most key attributes. And I always remind myself and people I work with, courage means the word is from a French word and core, which is heart. And it really means acting from your heart. And generally means despite your fear, because we're all afraid, and where we're love and fear, it's all very interconnected. So I would say courage. I would also say patience, which I've had a very hard time developing myself. I think is a key that we don't always get gifted. We have to grow. Kindness is something that I think is a huge attribute. I have found kindness to be something I've also had to nurture and nourish, because I think the drive to succeed and be a woman, there's sometimes, over proving yourself and having to be aggressive, and it can diminish your kindness. And kindness is something that, especially the less you have it towards the outside world, as, we as women are trying to accomplish, once it gets in short supply, we also are not able to be kind to ourselves. And that lack of kindness to ourselves is something can be very limiting. Kindness can open really a lot of doors. Changeability, I think, is key. I think consciousness is something we don't talk about enough in sort of a business way. It's sort of put off into sort of a soul growing way. And I think consciousness is so important. I would say imagination. I'm very resourceful, and I've had to sort of, even as an artist, I would say my resourcefulness is stronger than my imaginative powers. And I think imagination is so important. And finally, I would just say willingness. Sometimes resistance is so strong, and no-ness. So I would say willingness and yesness, and specifically the willingness to change.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much for that. Those are really strong attributes for our subscribers to aim for. I love them. Thank you very much. So what future do you envision for women?
The funniest thing is, you read the future is female, you see that sort of meme, and then I always think, yeah, now that there is no future, sure. It's like, sure, we've reached the end of history, and now what? And now it's our turn. That is one side of me. The other part of me, I would say, we're entering a time when, if we're going to, I am a hopeful person, and I do think that a future is possible. And I think that involves an embrace of the divine feminine, which is to say, everything that's yin, a world that honors receiving as much as making. In the Chinese yin yang, how the both sides of it. And I think the divine feminine and a certain type of creativity are the things that are going to get us through to a future. So I would say the future I imagine for women and envision for women is a future certainly of equality and freedom. This is what we're fighting for, and this is the big fight. And unless women can be free, the divine feminine cannot prevail. And without the divine feminine, I fear we come to an end of this earthly experiment.
That's amazing. That's very good, very empowering, and it creates a lot of hope for women. So the next question is, the theme for this particular issue is courageous decision making. How important is decision making to you?
In some ways, it is the most important thing. There are 8 habits of being a highly creative person that I teach as a unit. And those habits are deciding, starting, facing the fear, changing, believing in yourself, consistency, listening and receiving and knowing yourself. But, and deciding is the first. Without deciding, none of the rest of that can happen. And I don't know that we're even taught deciding, or, I don't know that it's presented as the most important thing. But, the word decide, and in some ways, the word decide is part of the reason. Decide is related to words like homicide and suicide. All the side words have to do with a cutting off. So deciding is a cutting off of other options, and there's a certain violence to it. And I think that that wildness and that violence is something that keeps it, from being ever easy. So I would say, how important is it? It is so important. It's the most important.
So important and the most important. So thank you. Thank you. And for giving us that a bit of history or word meaning behind the word decide. Thank you. So your audiobook, So You Need to Decide, was named 2020's best comedy book by the Vulture. And congratulations for that.
Thank you. One of the best. It was in the top. There was a list, and I was on it, and it was.
Oh, you're one of them.
Company to be in. Thank you.
What inspired you to decide? We chose to use that word, to decide to write this book.
Partly following the green lights, which is a great piece of advice for young women entrepreneurs. Follow the green lights. It was advice that was given to me, and I try to follow it. My agent said to me, I think I could sell an original audiobook. Do you have any ideas? What could you do? A book that would be your story mixed with conversations. Do you have any ideas for what that would be? And over the course of producing and curating comedians and storytellers, I can suss out sort of like, this is the kind of thing that people have big stories about. And so I was looking for an idea, and it was around the last presidential election, 2018. And the word decide and the, decisions, it's a big word around, and I was seeing it everywhere. And the word just kind of really started resonating for me. And I started seeing it in neon, and this way of making decisions of things start to be in your field a lot. You hear the same word over the same song, you start feeling a certain way, you're drifting towards something. So this idea of deciding really was started to come towards me. I was excited about doing an original audiobook because I love being an innovator. I mean, innovation is so exciting to me. And it's still a new area. So I was super excited about the idea of doing that kind of project and innovating in that area. And I knew that I could do a really good thing that was different than had been done. And once I thought of the idea of decision, I thought, oh, this is going to be good because I'm going to get to tell a lot of stories and I'm going to learn from it. The word creativity, people think it means to make something, but actually the word create comes from a word that means to grow. And so I'm always looking for projects that can help me grow. And I think this is a great metric for your listeners to use. It's helped me so much.
Creativity, that's good. So it means it's originally has the meaning of grow within it.
Yes.
That's very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. So You Need to Decide, still in the book, you share that the first big decision you ever had to make was when you were 5 years old. Can you elaborate on this decision?
I think what you're talking about, I'm like, I've written a lot. It's hard to remember what's where. I think you're talking about, there was a time in the hospital when I was sitting in the hallway and looking into a room where the kids were playing doctor. And I just thought, I mean, why are we playing doctor in the hospital? We could play anything. We could play house. We could play, astronaut. We could play school. Why are we playing doctor? I mean, as an adult, I understand that it's role playing and working out of stuff, but I was just like, don't we want to get out of here? Which is sort of very me. I am sort of like, if it's uncomfortable, let's get out. But I didn't say anything. And it wasn't until many years later that when I was itchy to do comedy differently and was thinking, oh, can't we do this differently? Why does it have to be like this? That I remembered being in the hospital and being 5 and saying, oh, can't we play a different game, and not doing anything about it. So, you get a chance. Life keeps giving you the same thing over and over again until you get it.
That's the truth. Oh, thank you. And that was a decision. So in the book, you interview a number of people about decision making. You interview people like Bob Odenkirk, Sandra Bernhard, and Margaret Cho, and many others, actually. This means you have so many lessons that you must have got from all those conversations. Are you able to share with the Stellar Woman subscribers with us the key lessons that you picked up from these conversations?
Well, I would say one of the key lessons is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every single one of these people talks about good decisions and bad decisions. Part of it is just so many listeners have reached out and said, it was amazing how vulnerable your conversations were with people, that, people were willing to share a lot that made them vulnerable. And that vulnerability came in not just saying this great decision, that great decision, all my brilliant decisions. Everybody did make courageous decisions. Everybody, but I would say risk taking and persistence, and not being afraid to make mistakes.
Not be okay. Yeah, those are a couple of lessons. Good. Not being afraid to make mistakes. I think that's where many of us stay a long time to prefer not to make any decision in one way or another. That's really
sometimes you just have to pick a thing. It might be the wrong thing, and either you can change your mind or, period, the end, you failed this time. But for sure, the wrong decision is no decision.
That's a very important one for procrastinators. No decision. Okay, thank you for that. What would you consider as your most courageous decision that you've ever made? If at all, we have to bring you to that.
There's something I think of as a cluster of decisions. Sometimes decisions aren't singular. And I made a decision to start my life over in a certain sense about a dozen years ago. And that was really hard, and it was really brave, and it was a cluster of decisions that involved divorce, leaving a house, and selling it at a time when the real estate market was not really the right time to do it, and sobriety. So it was an enormous restart, and all at once. Yeah, it was pretty brave, I gotta say.
It was pretty brave. Yeah, those are too many
all
things.
At once. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And do you regret any of that?
No, not at all. It was I'm so grateful. Even when I look back, I almost think of that person as, how did she do that girl? I mean, I'm like, oh my God. And I don't regret it. And I'm almost not even the same person, and I'm super grateful to that girl who did that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What a brave girl she was. Yes, yes.
What a brave girl she was.
Exactly. And she made it possible to be the person that you are and to serve the way you serve. Thank you. Thank you. But when you go through those decisions, especially at that moment when you had that cluster of decisions to make, if you look at it, I know that you don't regret any, but I want you to go back in time and think about what is the one thing that you would give yourself as, can I say, a skill set from that moment Was it the boldness? What was it that you can give back today from that cluster, those critical, courageous decision that you had to make at that point? What is the skill set that you can transfer to Beth today that other people can feel and take with them?
What was the skill set that I used to make that decision?
At that point in time, maybe you didn't think it's a skill set, but maybe there's something that you feel that we can extract from that difficult decision, that courageous decision, that moment when you had to change your life.
I would say trusting myself, you know.
That's a big one.
I
Yeah.
mean, I know that's not a skill set, but
Yeah, no,
but
yeah.
trusting myself and making good decisions around who, I think I would say personnel decisions in a very, like, to put it in office talk, who's going to be in your life and everything that you can do to improve your trusting yourself, your intuition. I think those skills, and I would say over the course of my life, I have developed those skills with actual introspection and writing. I mean, knowing yourself. I mean, you can't trust yourself until you know yourself. So I would say knowing yourself is the first skill. And some of that is done with writing and understanding. Some of it is done with any kind of therapeutic work, whether it's with a therapist or in other modalities or in any kind of recovery or with friends. Also, I've been a practicing yogi for a long time. That there's a coming to know yourself through that's Vidyaya, but I started and I've always meditated on and off. And then 6 years ago, I began a Vedic meditation practice, which is the practice that TM is based on, which somebody does give you a mantra and it's 20 minutes twice a day. Do I do it 20 minutes every single day twice? No. But some days, yes, and some days once, and sometimes I miss a day. But I am consistently in the practice, and that practice is a practice of there's a stress relief. The science of it is a letting go of stress. And whether it's that practice or others, any practice that is going to help you hone your intuitive abilities. That very specifically in the Vedic system, they call it following your charm, which I love. I mean, it's a very like magic carpet way of thinking about it, but you can call following your intuition or knowing your heart or, that is the best skill set that will take you through life in every kind of situation, and everything follows that.
I really think so. Thank you. Thank you. And I think many of us stay where we are and are not able to shift to go to different because of just that, not having the ability to even trust yourself. Yeah. Of course, you're telling us possible to know ourselves, but of course, that's very true.
You have to know yourself or you can't trust yourself, because who are you?
Yes, what is that you're going to trust? So definitely. And that's the journey. That's the journey. Just like you are going through the journey, we need to go into that type of journey where we can be able to tap into the intuition to learn to know ourselves. Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. So tell us, would you regard yourself as a fast decision maker or slow decision maker, procrastinator? And whatever it is, has it worked?
I can't decide how to answer this. I'd say both. There are some decisions I am definitely at ease with making a fast decision. And I have made a bunch of, being a performer and being on stage is a billion fast decisions. You're just deciding things instantaneously all the time. And it is great practice. It is a practice in that kind of life. There are decisions I have deliberated on for a long time Oprah says, I'm not a big Oprah devotee, but one thing she has said that has stuck with me is when in doubt, don't.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is just an amazing way to look at it. But you also have to remember that generally there's never going to be 100% surety. You
Yeah.
know, is there ever going to be, are you ever going to be without that tiny little piece, that grain of sand of I don't know-ness? No. So I would say be willing to live with a little bit of uncertainty, but go with where there is a strong feeling. So I've done both. I've done slow, I've done fast.
You do both, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
Thank you. And what has influenced you? So where are you most of the time? Are you slower or faster? And in that way, I wanted to ask what has influenced your approach to decision making?
First, sometimes I just know. I know my mind and my heart pretty well. And if not, if there have been, I mean, even I can think this year about two big decisions I made that I didn't know instantaneously about. There was a move and a decision to work with someone. Both of those took some deliberating. So when I think about those, I do, besides, consulting myself and my higher power, I do talk to people I trust. I mean, I have people around me, build a network of people you trust. And how you decide on who you trust is, over the course of time, have they given you it's a little bit of a test. Do you admire how they live their life? Are they good decision makers? Do they know you? Do they understand you? Do you share morals and values? So I have a group of people like that. Do you trust them not to even gossip about you and talk about your decisions? So I talk to the people I trust, which is just a handful of people. I try to decide both things. If I'm uncertain and I'm weighing things, I make a decision and I live with it without doing anything about it. And sometimes it sits right and sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then I make the other decision and live with it. And I kind of go back and forth, kind of having made the decision but not acted on it. Those are my best. I never do a pro and con list. I mean, I just think those are so silly. It's ridiculous. I mean, sometimes there's one thing on the pro list, but it's the only thing that matters, you know.
Yeah.
It's like it's just crazy. So I will sometimes list stuff out, but more often than not, it's more of an essay than a multiple choice question.
Good. Thank you. I think you've answered the next question, which was about how the process you follow in making important decisions, where there is any. But you've talked about the fact that you use, of course, you trust your intuition, but you also have friends who are just a handful that you trust and can refer to them. And at times, of course, you use a little bit of having some pro and cons here, but not all the time. Is there anything else that you could be you engage in terms of the process for making important decisions or big decisions, like a move to change of location, or you talked about even working with a person? So this year, actually, did you require any process, or you just use those methods?
I used all those. I mean, I used all those in both those decisions. At a certain point in both those decisions, I decided yes. And generally, I find for me, something doesn't stick around long enough to become a decision unless it's something that probably I do want to do. But some things are about leaving. The show has been this is my Uncabaret is so long running, and we've had residencies, it's been almost 30 years, and we've had a number of, like, 7 big residencies and a bunch of one-offs also, but long-term residencies. And there have been some cases where I've been, should we change our venue? And sometimes I've just dragged my heels until it just becomes clear because the venue has closed.
Oh.
But because change is sometimes there isn't a better option. Sometimes that where you are, and I don't just mean a venue, but where you are with anything, your job, if it's a job or a location where you live, or even, say your weight, your hair, these things that we live with every day. You want to change, but when's the time? What's the thing? I have one friend who kept saying to me, I was just like, oh, we should move the show. And she kept saying, you'll know when it's time. It's like putting a dog down, you just like, you keep thinking about it, but one day it really is the day.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's like, don't pressure yourself to make a decision prematurely. The day will come. And there's a phrase, whether or not you believe in God, some people resist the word God, but insert your favorite phrase when I say God. Sometimes God does for you what you can't do for yourself. And when that happens, be grateful. When that
Yeah.
happens, notice it, and notice that you maybe could have done it for yourself a little sooner. Next time you might go sooner.
Yeah. But somehow, definitely, God just helps you, helps you out there.
Sometimes God makes the decision for you. And sometimes, I find that sometimes taking the long view, the big view, pulling out to the long shot, if you were looking at it as a movie, sometimes when it seems like it's not the right thing, or why did it happen this way, and have to make a decision about it, I do try to look at the bigger picture. I think that's a really great technique. You're asking me for techniques because things that have happened in the past, sometimes you can't see how they were quote unquote good for you or the right thing. And then somehow 10, 20 years later, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, if that hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened. And as you mature, one of the great graces we get as we are privileged to grow up is knowing that that's the case in the past, knowing that things that didn't seem quote unquote good when they were happening have somehow evolved and given you an opportunity you never would have had otherwise, does give you a certain amount of grace to live through things that are uncomfortable or quote unquote bad, because you have experienced how things have unfolded in ways that you couldn't control. And I guess the decision to live in that place where both you are as much an advocate for yourself and as much active and activated and a change agent for yourself, and also willing to go with the flow a little bit. I mean, this goes to what I was saying up top, type A free spirit, being both willing to roll with it and able to make things happen, and living those two things in balance, which is another way. I mean, the serenity prayer is that too, the courage to change the things you can, and the willingness to know when you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's got that balance. I mean, balance is such an important word for your
Yeah.
listeners. To be a stellar woman is to somehow find balance.
Yeah, definitely. That was a good one that you brought in, the serenity prayer, the courage to do what you know that you can do. There are things that we can do, and we just don't have the courage to do them, and to let go those that we know that we can't change, and to know the difference.
The wisdom to know the difference, but the
Yeah.
courage to change what you can. I mean, if no other sentence from this, it's not my sentence. It's like courage to change what you can, which sometimes is internal. Sometimes the main decision you have to make, and I think this is overlooked, is an internal decision, a decision to not see yourself as a victim, a decision to not, be the person at work there's a lot of things that happen inside of us, and they're invisible, and they're not necessarily given the spotlight because they don't manifest immediately, but they will manifest.
Indeed. Thank you.
This conversation continues, so look out for part 2 in the next episode. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for joining us on the Stellar Woman magazine and show's mission to spread thriving women's stories, knowledge, and experiences so that you too can learn one or two things, be inspired, empowered to change, and thrive. We change one woman at a time. This, we believe, will help to make the world a better and brighter world. I hope today's episode inspired you to change perspective, see new possibilities, and take action so that you can become the stellar woman that you would like to be. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to the Stellar Woman Show and magazine website for transcripts and more. Also, please remember to subscribe, review, and share with others, and follow us on all social media platforms. Have a great day. We look forward to catching up with you on the next episode.